The roof has been groaning for almost an hour. At first, each sound was small enough to ignore: a wooden joint shifting, a tile scraping against the next, dust falling through a crack. Now the entire ceiling bends with every tremor. Pale stones hammer the tiles from above. They roll into the street, collect against the walls, and bury the doorway a little more every minute. Lucius is 17 years old. His hands are white with flour from the bakery where he should still be working. Instead, he is standing inside his family's house with a folded cloak over his younger sister's head. The neighbor beside them says the walls are strong. He says the street is worse. He says no sensible person walks beneath falling stones when a Roman roof stands over him. Then another building collapses somewhere nearby. The impact is not a sharp crack. It is a deep, heavy roar, followed by voices and a cloud of dust that pushes through the doorway. Lucius looks up. The center beam has split along its grain. He has to decide now. Stay inside, where stone walls offer protection from the debris falling out of the sky, or lead his sister into a city becoming darker and less recognizable by the minute. If you had lived in Pompeii, how would you have known when shelter had become a trap? This is the story of one possible escape. Lucius and his sister, Tertia, are fictional. Their world is not. The streets, houses, objects, and stages of the eruption are reconstructed from archaeological evidence and ancient testimony. Their choices represent choices real people faced in Pompeii in the year 79. And to understand why so many waited, we must return to a morning when the mountains still looked harmless. At dawn, there is nothing remarkable about the light. It reaches the upper walls first, warming painted plaster the color of iron and old wine. Shopkeepers lift wooden shutters. Water runs into public fountains. Cartwheels settle into grooves worn through the paving stones by years of traffic. Lucius crosses the street using raised stepping stones placed between the sidewalks. They keep his sandals above the dirt and water that collect in the road. He knows which gaps are wide enough for cartwheels because he has walked this route for most of his life. Pompeii is not a silent museum. It is a working city of homes, workshops, taverns, baths, shrines, gardens, warehouses, and arguments. Painted notices compete for attention on walls. Food is being prepared. Deliveries are late. Repairs remain unfinished. Somewhere a dog barks at a mule that refuses to move. Lucius reaches the bakery before the worst heat of the day. Inside, heavy stone mills stand above a floor dusted with grain. The upper half of each mill can be turned, crushing grain between rough volcanic stone. Nearby, the oven holds yesterday's heat. His first tasks are repetitive. Move the flour, check the dough, clear ash, carry water. These ordinary details matter because disasters do not begin in a world where everyone is waiting for disaster. They interrupt work already underway. Above the roofs, north of the city, Mount Vesuvius is part of the landscape. From a modern photograph, we recognize it as a volcano. Lucius would not see the same familiar outline we know today. The eruption will reshape the summit. More important, he does not possess a modern understanding of volcanic warning signs. To him, the mountain is land. Its slopes support farms and vineyards. It does not announce itself as a machine capable of burying a city. The first tremor of the morning is strong enough to rattle a ceramic vessel on a shelf. Lucius catches it before it falls. A few workers pause. One makes a joke. Then the mill begins turning again. This reaction can look careless only from the safety of the future. The region has experienced earthquakes before. A major earthquake damaged Pompeii years earlier, and repairs are still visible. Smaller shocks have become part of life. When warnings repeat without catastrophe, people learn to fit them into the ordinary world. Lucius does what people often do after a familiar disturbance. He checks what might have broken. He listens for a second tremor. Then he returns to work. Before midday, another vibration passes beneath the floor. This time, the animals outside react first. The mule in the street pulls hard against its rope. A man curses and tries to calm it. Then someone points north. A column is rising above the mountain. At its base, it looks almost solid, darker than an ordinary cloud, and climbing with a speed that makes its scale difficult to understand. Higher in the sky, it spreads outward beneath its own weight. Across the Bay of Naples, the young Pliny would later describe a cloud shaped like a pine tree, a tall trunk opening into branches. He was not standing in Pompeii, and his letters were written years later. But his comparison preserves the appearance of the eruption column better than any image from that day. In the street, people stop working. Some climb to roofs or upper windows for a better view. Others call children indoors. A few begin walking toward the city gates before anything has fallen. There is no single reaction because there is not yet a single agreed meaning. Is the danger on the mountain or here? Will the wind carry the cloud away? Is the house safer than the road? Should a person leave immediately or first find a child, an elderly parent, a valuable document, a bag of coins? Lucius thinks of Tertia. Their mother died several years earlier. Their father is away delivering goods to a property outside the city. Tertia is 11 and should be at home with a neighbor. The bakery owner tells everyone to cover the flour and close the shutters. This is not necessarily greed or denial. Dust is beginning to drift through the air. A closed building still appears to be protection. Lucius works for a few more minutes. Then a dull concussion reaches the city. The door trembles. Fine particles fall from the roof beams. He leaves without asking again. The walk home takes longer than usual. People occupy the street, watching, debating, carrying bundles. Lucius passes a man leading 2 children toward a gate. He passes another family moving jars into an interior room. A cart blocks part of an intersection. Everyone is making decisions with incomplete information. At home, Tertia is waiting near the doorway. She has already filled a small cloth bag with objects she considers essential: a cup, a comb, a piece of bread, and an oil lamp. Lucius tells her they may have to leave. Then the first piece of pumice strikes the roof. It is light, full of trapped gas, and small enough to hold in one hand. Another lands in the street. Then 5. Then dozens. The people outside move under cover. Lucius closes the door. For a while, staying inside works. The stones are light. They bounce from hard surfaces and collect in corners. The walls block them. The family next door moves into its strongest room. Lucius brings water, bread, 2 cloaks, the lamp, and a small purse away from the outer rooms. If they leave now, they will expose their heads and faces to falling debris. If they wait, perhaps the wind will change. Perhaps the eruption will weaken. Perhaps their father will return. Every reason to stay contains a possibility. None is absurd. Outside, however, the city is changing faster than the people inside can see. Pumice accumulates across the paving stones. It fills the spaces between the raised sidewalks. It gathers on roofs, not designed to hold an endlessly increasing load. Wheeled carts become awkward. Familiar doorways begin to narrow behind pale drifts. The fall grows denser. Daylight becomes weak and strangely colored. Lucius lights the oil lamp. The flame makes the room feel smaller. Each time the ground shakes, oil trembles in the lamp and shadows move across the walls. Tertia asks whether the mountain is on fire. Lucius says he does not know. He does not tell her that he is waiting for their father. He listens for a familiar voice outside, even as the noise on the roof becomes louder. Hours pass not as a clean sequence, but as repeated decisions. Stay for another few minutes. Check the door. Clear stones from the threshold. Return to the interior room. Wait through another tremor. Then a tile falls into the courtyard and shatters. Lucius steps outside the room. Dust hangs beneath the rafters. The roof above the outer space has started to sag. The neighbor insists that the central room remains safe. Roman walls can be thick, but the danger is no longer simply what is falling from the sky. It is the weight already resting above them. Archaeology shows that people in the early phase of the eruption could be killed by collapsing roofs and walls. At Pompeii, layers of pumice reached meters in depth in places. A building that protects its occupants at the beginning can become a loaded trap later. Lucius pushes at the front door. It opens only partway. Pumice spills inward around his ankles. The street is dark enough for lamps. Figures move past with folded cloth and cushions tied or held over their heads. Pliny would describe people elsewhere around the bay using pillows as protection from falling material. It is a practical defense against small stones, not against the deadliest phase still to come. Lucius looks back at Tertia. Their father has not returned. The ceiling beam cracks. And now we are back where the story began. The neighbor says they should remain together. Lucius agrees with the first half of that sentence. He takes Tertia's bag, empties the cup and comb onto the floor, and keeps the bread, lamp, and a small water flask. He folds a thick piece of cloth over her head and ties it beneath her chin. He places another over his own hair. They carry no furniture, no jar, no object that needs two hands. The most important thing they possess now is the ability to move. Lucius forces the door wider. Pumice pours into the house. The sound outside is overwhelming. Not one continuous roar, but thousands of impacts. Stone on tile, stone on paving, shutters banging, people calling names, masonry falling without warning. The city he knew that morning has disappeared beneath a pale, unstable surface. Each step sinks. His sandals fill with grit. The raised sidewalks that once kept feet above the street are becoming less distinct. Their destination is a gate on the southern side of the city. It leads away from the mountain and toward more open ground. The distance is not great on an ordinary day. This is no longer an ordinary city. They keep near the center of the street when they can, away from roof edges. But abandoned bundles and fallen tiles force them toward the walls. Visibility contracts to the circle of their lamp. At the first intersection, a family moves in the opposite direction. They are trying to reach relatives. Someone tells Lucius that the gate is blocked. Someone else says the shore is the only escape. Neither claim can be checked. This is how uncertainty multiplies during a disaster. Information arrives through frightened people who have seen only one street, one doorway, one failed route. Lucius continues south. A tremor moves beneath them. The street seems to roll. Tertia falls against him. Across the road, the upper part of a wall separates from a building. For an instant, it hangs in the darkness. Then it strikes the pumice with enough force to throw pale dust through the air. They had passed beneath that wall moments earlier. Lucius begins counting steps. Not because the number matters, but because counting gives Tertia something to follow. 10 steps, then breathe. 10 more. Do not look up. Keep the cloth over your head. They pass a doorway where people are still sheltering. A man asks whether the street is safe. Lucius cannot answer. He says only that a roof has collapsed behind them. Some of the people emerge. Others remain. The story of Pompeii contains decisions like these, but archaeology rarely preserves the words exchanged at a doorway. It preserves positions, objects, collapsed rooms, and routes cut off by debris. The conversation is dramatized. The dilemma was real. Halfway to the gate, Tertia loses a sandal. The strap catches beneath loose pumice. Her foot pulls free, and the sandal vanishes into the pale stones behind her. She stops instinctively. Lucius tells her to leave it. She takes one step and cries out. The fragments are light, but their surfaces can be rough. Moving quickly with one bare foot will be painful and slow. Lucius turns back. For several seconds, his hands find nothing. Pumice continues falling onto his neck and shoulders. Tertia calls his name. The people who followed them move around the pair and disappear into darkness. He finds the strap, pulls the sandal free, and reties it badly. The delay is less than a minute. It feels much longer. They start again, but their lamp goes out. Now direction depends on memory. The angle of the street, the edge of a fountain, the outline of a doorway, the downward change in the road beneath the pumice. Lucius has walked here countless times. Familiarity has value even when familiar landmarks vanish. Ahead, a warm orange light appears through the dust. It is not the gate. Part of a wooden structure is burning, perhaps ignited by a fallen lamp or oven fire disturbed by the shaking. Lucius moves away from it. Pompeii is not being consumed by rivers of lava. Fire is a local hazard. The great danger remains above, beneath, and hidden in the eruption cloud. They hear another collapse behind them. Tertia asks again about their father. Lucius says that he was outside the city and may already be safe. It is possible. He chooses not to say what is also possible, that their father returned by another gate and is searching the house for them. At the next crossing, the pumice reaches higher against the walls. Lucius sees a cart abandoned at an angle, its wheels half buried. The cart could carry supplies on a clear road. Here it has become an obstacle. They climb around it. Tertia slips, catches the side, and tears her bag. The bread falls out. She reaches for it. Lucius pulls her onward. The story has reduced their world to a sequence of abandonments. The house, their father's expected return, the comb, the cup, the sandal for a moment, and now the bread. Survival is not one heroic choice. It is the repeated acceptance that the thing behind you cannot be recovered safely. Then the darkness ahead changes. It is not daylight. It is a wider shade of gray. The buildings are ending. The city gate emerges gradually, an opening framed by stone and moving silhouettes. It is not blocked, but people crowd the passage, and pumice makes every step uneven. A frightened animal forces its way between two groups. Someone falls. Those behind cannot immediately see why the line has stopped. Lucius holds Tertia's wrist rather than her hand. Their palms are dusty, and he is afraid her fingers will slip from his. Another tremor passes through the gate. Small fragments fall from the masonry. Everyone moves at once. For several seconds, Lucius and Tertia are pressed apart by the crowd. He still has her wrist. Then he does not. He turns and sees only cloth-covered heads. He calls her name once, twice. A hand catches his belt from behind. Tertia has dropped below the movement of the crowd rather than being carried away by it. Lucius pulls her upright and places her in front of him. Together, they pass beneath the arch. Beyond the walls, there is no sudden return to safety. Stones still fall. The air is difficult to breathe. The road is crowded with people carrying children, leading animals, supporting relatives, or dragging possessions they will soon abandon. But the roof lines are behind them. There is space to move away from walls. The city no longer controls every possible route. Lucius does not stop to watch Pompeii disappear. He leads Tertia farther south, then away from the main road where the crowd has slowed. Their goal is not a perfect refuge. It is distance. Tertia asks whether their house will still be standing tomorrow. Lucius says yes. It is the first answer he has given her that he does not believe. They continue through the falling pumice until the city is hidden. Later, the fall weakens where they are walking. The darkness remains, but the impacts become less dense. They find shelter in open agricultural land near a low stone boundary, far from any roof heavy enough to collapse on them. Their fictional escape ends here. Pompeii's eruption does not. Through the night and into the following morning, the eruption changed. The tall column above Vesuvius could no longer remain stable. Material collapsed downward and raced outward as hot, ground-hugging currents of gas, ash, and volcanic debris. These were not slow rivers of lava that a person might outrun through the streets. They were pyroclastic currents, fast, turbulent, and lethally hot. Earlier in the disaster, Shelter could block falling pumice. A cushion could reduce injury from small stones. Clearing a doorway could preserve an escape route. When hot currents reached the city, those small defenses no longer matched the hazard. The archaeological park of Pompeii explains that people who had not left during the first phase could be trapped by accumulating debris or killed when roofs and walls collapsed. Later, a high-temperature current reached the city and filled spaces not already buried. More than 1,000 victims of the eruption have been found at Pompeii. That number is not a complete population count or a complete death toll. Many residents escaped. Others may remain undiscovered. Archaeology gives us evidence, not perfect arithmetic. The famous casts preserve the shapes of some victims because bodies buried in ash left cavities after the organic material disappeared. In the 19th century, excavators developed a method of filling some of those spaces with plaster. The result is emotionally powerful, but each cast should be understood as evidence of a real death, not as scenery for spectacle. Our decision to let Lucius and Tertia escape is plausible because many people did leave Pompeii. Their exact route and family are invented. We cannot know whether a bakery worker made these precise choices, lost a sandal on this street, or passed through this gate at this hour. What we can know is that the choices changed over time. Leaving early was easier, but the danger was less certain. Waiting made the danger obvious, but made escape physically harder. Shelter protected people from one phase while exposing them to collapsing structures and the later phase. Information was local, incomplete, and sometimes contradictory. That is what makes Pompeii more than a simple story about people who failed to run from a volcano. They were not choosing between obvious safety and obvious death. They were choosing between uncertain roads, separated families, falling debris, valuable time, and buildings that were safe until they were not. Today, Pompeii gives us an unusually detailed view of ordinary Roman life precisely because so much of that life was interrupted. We can walk streets marked by cartwheels. We can enter bakeries with stone mills and ovens. We can see fountains, counters, gardens, political notices, repairs, household objects, and rooms that once held private routines. The city is often described as frozen in time. The phrase is useful, but incomplete. Pompeii was not frozen in a single instant. It was buried through a sequence of changing conditions. People had time to notice, interpret, prepare, wait, flee, turn back, or remain. Their city became an archaeological record of those unequal moments. In this reconstruction, the eruption sequence, falling pumice, earthquakes, darkness, collapsing roofs, later pyroclastic currents, streets, bakery equipment, and protective cloth are grounded in written or archaeological evidence. Lucius, Tertia, their father, their conversation, and the exact timing of their escape are dramatized. The precise calendar date of the eruption is also debated, which is why this story identifies the year rather than presenting one date as unquestioned fact. History rarely tells us the exact moment an ordinary person understood the danger. Pompeii preserves something almost as powerful: the choices people were forced to make before certainty arrived. For Lucius, survival begins when he stops waiting for certainty. He leaves the cup. He leaves the bread. He leaves the house whose walls still appear strong. And with one hand around his sister's wrist, he walks into the darkness while there is still time to walk out of it.